SpaceX is because he found the launch cost to do a private Mars exploration mission too high. So if, Falcon 9 goes great gangbusters, he's making lots of money, and he builds his own Mars probe, how would the Chinese respond to an entirely private entity beating them to some goal?
Okay, I promise multiple phases of answers. That first phase is incomprehension, complete failure to grasp it. Second phase would be, oh, obviously this company is a stalking horse of a foreign government. Okay? And in that case, it would be viewed as a sort of a CIA initiative, some kind of black mission that could not be understood except by questioning its motives. And then phase 3 might be, they saw it actually raising money through public subscription and getting investors and companies lined up with it. The third stage would probably be sheer panic. Wow, they're going to do it. They could beat us there. What are we going to do? How they respond to that, I can't tell you.
David.
With the pending retirement of the shuttle, and maybe even including the shuttle, it's hard to argue that the Chinese don't have the most modern, at least, or sophisticated human spacecraft on the planet. Do you have any insight into how sophisticated the spacecraft actually is, and how do you not come to that conclusion?
Let me,
In fact, China's leading now.
let me put it this way. If we were to go back and redo the Gemini program right now with present-day technology, it would look very much like the Chinese mission. It is up-to-date technology. The overall conception is straight out of the 1960s. Why are they doing things like doing a spacewalk and doing rendezvous tests? Well, the answer is that they have to develop these technologies in order to do the things they need to do farther downstream. So they are really sleepwalking at high speed through the mid and late 1960s right now. The technological state of their spacecraft is modern, it's up to date. The idea that they stole it from us because a satellite crashed and burned is naive in the extreme, and nothing more than an excuse for defending political attitudes that are based on other things. Yeah, that's.
So the conclusion is that China is, in fact, the leader.
If you think that a souped-up Gemini is something that you can lead the world with, then yes. But they don't have, even China doesn't have deep enough pockets to do everything. And certain aspects of their program that they deem to have the highest political impact and highest importance will receive disproportionate emphasis and funding. And manned spaceflight is one of them, and beginning deep space exploration is certainly one of the others. But remember, most of their money, those launch teams, those DLA Air Force launch teams that launch the civil missions, spend most of their time and effort. Spend most of their time and effort launching real military satellites. Now that's their real raison d'etre, and that's where most of their money goes. That's their first priority. And if you look into the modernization of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy, same story applies.
John, my understanding from about 5 years ago when I was looking at laser comm seriously is that China has a very strong program of laser ranging the satellites. It's one of the, I think it's the most active country, at least was 5 years ago. I'm wondering whether laser comm might be their way to do the deep space comm without building huge RF antennas.
I wouldn't be surprised if that shakes out 5 to 10 years from now, but I'd be very surprised to see it before 2015.
I would comment. It's my impression that the principal reason for NASA to be interested in international programs is the obligations for other countries to make it harder for Congress to kill the budget.
That's, yeah.
But also, while the Outer Space Treaty prohibits taking possession of celestial bodies, we clearly need some form of mining rights or occupation rights in order to mine asteroids.
Well, we already have, international law already basically gives you your occupation rights.
So what I would like to see, I think rather than a cooperative mission, is I'd like Russia and/or China to announce that they're going to have a manned portable mission, and when they got there, it'd be off limits to us.
No, you can't claim a body. You can't claim a body, but you can claim a base as your own sovereign territory. And how big a base can be is a matter not settled by international law.
Do you have a rough order of magnitude estimate for how much a mission to the moon and sample return mission to the moon? Any sort of rough?
Yeah, are you talking about mass or money? To quote a Russian friend of mine, I once asked a Russian colleague how much money they spent on their Venus probes, and he says, in a socialist society, money is not relevant. And then he burst out laughing. There's no way to answer that because much of the cost of the program is labor. And their labor is, well, to overuse the word, conscript labor. They're military personnel for the most part. They're already being paid for launch readiness for military missions. This is just sort of a little fringe benefit.
Aaron?
Your slides mentioned that several of the Chinese missions are called Zhenghe, the great Chinese admiral who led China's fleets in the early 15th century on their missions of exploration. But how much resonance do you think that has culturally with either the 300 and 450 million that you mentioned that are approaching the West, or the 900 million peasants? And does this mean something to them when a brand is used? And do you think that they would really comprehend what we talk about when we talk about the frontier?
Yeah, there's a lot of posturing and a lot of emphasis on how space exploration is a reflection of ancient Chinese culture and all this sort of stuff. Much of it pretty tortuous and not terribly convincing, but there is a serious attempt there to connect Chinese cultural values to the exploration of it. For the choice of names of their missions, they do indeed look back in the past. For those of you who want object lessons about these things, the Chinese voyages of exploration in the 1400s during the Ming Dynasty basically came to a crashing end when the emperor died and the court eunuchs took over the funding, the planning of the government budget. And they first had the so-called treasure fleet beached, then burned, and even that proved to be insufficient, so they sent around and tried to collect all the records from the expedition and burn them too. So there's a cautionary story there that China was on the verge of discovering Europe, and the history of the world would have been very, very different if the eunuchs had not won. Was that a metaphor? Yeah.
A few years ago, the buying and selling of grades and college degrees is pretty big story in China, and corruption is still a pretty big problem. How does that affect current or future human resources in scientific field?
Many cultures around the world have a long tradition of bribery and corruption. And it's even been known to reach as far east as Chicago or Boston. Washington? No. Seattle? No, come on. One of the things that you see, we were immersed in the Chinese media for a year. And one of the things that you see over and over and over again, Vice Mayor of Beijing found guilty of corruption and executed. Yeah, vice mayor indeed, that's what he was in charge of. But, but over and over again, there's this suggestion that many public officials in China are corrupt and have been getting away with it for a long time, and when they're caught, no lengthy prison terms. Don't forget that no matter how high a ranking official you may be, tomorrow you may be an organ donor.
So on that note, how does one subcontract the PLA? How does one subcontract the PLA? For a commercial, as a commercial subcontractor?
That's a good question. I have no idea. Of course, the State Department will get on your back if you try to negotiate with an agency of a foreign government.
Yeah, it looks like we're getting close to the end of.
Yeah, I was gonna say, tell about the number of employed aerospace.
Oh, yeah. We were taken to dinner by the dean of the aerospace school at Tsinghua University. And in the course of that dinner, Peg ingeniously asked him, tell me, what fraction of your graduates actually find employment in the aerospace world upon graduation? And his answer was about 10%. This is the MIT of China, most prestigious, hardest to get into university in the technical realm, full academic equivalent of Beijing University, Peking University, excuse me, they use the old pronunciation. But 10% success in getting their graduates placed in the aerospace industry? Think morale here, you know? Can we do one last?
China has stated that they want to try to spread scientific education throughout their country to make more scientific progress. In my view, one aspect of scientific progress is rebellion against orthodoxy, i.e. Ventnor went out and said, my shotgun approach would work, and everybody said, you're crazy, and he did it. The guy who won the 2005 Nobel Prize in Medicine said bacteria cause ulcers, and people said you should have your medical license revoked. So progress is made by rebelling against the scientific hierarchy to a large degree. Does China have any idea that's how it works, and will they be able to cope with that?
One phrase we frequently heard in China was, Victor Borghi, everybody knows. And this was then followed by a second half of the sentence, which invariably was nonsense. So conformity is much more important than orthodoxy, than tradition, you know, what we regard as orthodoxy. Conformity means pretend you agree with everybody else, and you'll get promoted. There are two really uncomfortable things that can happen to a student in China. One is to lag behind the class. The class is treated as a team, and everyone on the team must march in step. And if someone is lagging behind, it's the responsibility of the good students in the class to get him up to their standard. And this is often done by the simple expedient of cheating. Cheating is rampant in China, absolutely rampant. I found it necessary when I was meeting with a class at Tsinghua to explain to them that cheating would not be tolerated in this class because this is a class in the American style or the European style. A person caught cheating on a test at any university in Europe or the United States would be out of that university the next day. And, well, you want to tell some of your... Yeah. So Peg made this announcement in one of her classes, and the next time she had a test, one of the students wrote their answer and held the paper up like this for the person behind them to see.
So the second
Hmm?
is, they can't lag behind, and.
Oh, yeah, they can't lag behind. And the other equally hazardous thing is for your head to stick up above the crowd, because you'll get chopped. The way you get into a good university is, yes, good grades, but to have a flawless record of conformity. If you look at the great scientists and engineers who've come out of the American educational system, is there one conformist among them? Probably, but I don't know. I think that's it.
Great, great.
Thanks all again for coming. Don't forget the Space Frontier Foundation's reception immediately to follow, and we'll see you tomorrow morning, if not sooner.